Alright, alright, alright. How's it going, digital music? We are going to be doing this chord project, and you guys have 3 class periods to do it. I'm out of town, so thanks for rocking and rolling. We're gonna go over these 2 sheets again. There's the instruction sheet and then the music kind of theory part of it. Some of you have already gotten your chord progressions in. That's great. Here's an example of what the finished song could sound like, and the chord progression I did is the the second one down on that sheet: A minor, F, C, and G. Here we go. Okay, pretty cool, right? This is a fairly legitimate sounding backing track for maybe someone to sing over. I also have a little melody in there. So what we're doing is we are making a basic song with white note chord progressions that are very easy to play and very easy to input or draw in, with multiple harmony instruments. I just have 2 harmony instruments, piano and strings here, a bass line, a melody, just playing random white notes, which typically will sound good, and then some sort of groove or beat. So let's go over the instruction sheet. I'm just going to start from the beginning. We're just going to go through it. So before anything else, make sure our grid is on and that we're on bars and beats mode. So my grid is on up here, and I'm on bars and beats mode. Feel free to skip ahead in this video if you've already kind of got your chord progression dialed in, but we're just going to start from the beginning. So we're going to import 3 or 4 different chord progressions from the C major chord sheet. So I'm going to do the first chord progression on the sheet. These 4 are just examples. As you see down below, there's 6 chords: C, F, D, M for D minor, G, A minor, and E minor. And so there's technically 24 different combinations you could do. But we're just going to do the first one on the sheet. So there's 2 ways to get my chord progression in here. The first is to draw in the notes, and the other is to record it. So let's just do both. To draw in the notes, I right click with my mouse, holding right click, go to the draw tool, making sure my grid is on. 8th note is fine. Beat means that it's going to snap every quarter note instead of every 8th note. If I change it to use quantize, it will match whatever this note value is and do the 1/8 of a measure lines, if that makes sense. But we're just going to keep it on beat for right now. It doesn't really matter. Alright, so 3rd tool over, I'm going to draw a 4 measure region, because each chord progression, each chord, if you see over here, lasts for exactly 1 measure. You can see that each chord lasts for 1 measure. Alright, so now I'm going to right click, get back to my select tool, double click on this region I made, and now I can zoom in, zoom out here on this dark gray area. Now I need to start just double clicking notes. Notice how on the left I have my piano roll. This is important to keep track of, that I don't make these chords really, really low, like down here, where it's just obscenely low on the keyboard. I want it to be around C3, C4, somewhere in there. So I'm just going to double click 3 times. But my grid needs to be on. So I got to turn my grid on here as well. This program I'm using is the same, but it might look a little different. I'm on a Mac, just so you guys know. So the first chord is C. So what notes are in a C major chord? Well, we look down below. I see C, E, and G. So I got C here, and then G. This would be closed position, meaning the notes are close together. It is not a big deal if you, in your double clicking, just have, like, for instance, it's painful on the ears, isn't it, folks? I'm just using the up and down arrows. It's okay for your chord to look like this, for instance, where the C isn't the bottom note, it's just the middle note. But if you want it to be kind of correct-ish, then you can put the G up above and just match. So C is the name of the chord. It's also going to be what our bass note is going to be, but more on that in a second. So I'm just going to leave this one as is, and then I'm going to select all the notes and drag them out a measure. Now I need to do the next chord and the next chord and the next chord. So let's do this real quick. Double click, double click. G, so G, B, and D. Oh, I just did it. Okay, great. Drag those out again. A minor, so A, C, and E. Drag them out. And one more. And once I get this, I'm going to duplicate it and not really do anything with it. You'll see tricks I can do stuff with this to make it more interesting, but we'll get to that sort of at the end. Alright, so I've got my 4 chords here, just following along with the sheet. Let's hear that. Okay, now if I want those down an octave, what I can do, guys, is select the region and then transpose, go to -12 to make it sound an octave lower like this. It's playing the same notes, just lower, which is nice. And the sound that I've chosen is some piano pickup sound. I can go into edit and tweak the attack so it's not so bright. Like that. Alright, so now I'm going to duplicate this. So I want to get to a minute long. My tempo down here is at 120 beats per minute. You can change yours anytime you want. So I'm going to duplicate this a lot of times till about measure 30-31. Alright, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these chords down to another harmony track. On this Halion Sonic instrument track I have a string sound. Because piano and strings are nice complements to each other, you could think about your first harmony having a short attack. You hear how it doesn't really sustain. And then my second harmony track can be an instrument that sustains, which means when I hold down the notes, the sound is going to continue to play. So I'm going to take maybe the last 4 or 5 of these blocks and hit Alt. Holding Alt, I'm going to drag down to the next lane or track, which copied it. I could have also just hit Control D and then moved it down like this, but holding Alt drag is a much easier way of doing that. Alright, so I'm basically building the song. I'm doing a little bit of what we're going to get to on the tricks section of the sheet, which is building every 4 measures or so. We're going to change up the arrangement. But let's hear these things sound together. Alright, so these selected ones, I can leave it as is, but I'm going to transpose these down again, -24. So anything in increments of 12 is going to be the same notes, just higher or lower on the keyboard. In increments of 12 up here and transpose. Just scrolling my mouse right there. Yeah, I don't like that. We're going to go back up to -12. Okay, now we're going to add a bass line. And to do that, I'm going to copy all of these notes down, holding Alt. I'm going to drag all these down again, so it's copying to my bass line. Now, I can do one of 2 things at this point. I can glue these all together with the glue tool, or I can delete all of them except the first one. Because here's what we're doing, guys. We're just deleting every note except the bass note. So in this case, I need to be very careful because this first chord, I changed it up. The bottom note is not the name of the chord like it is for G, A, and F. C is in the middle here, so that's the note that I want to keep for my bass line. Now you could leave it, I could have G be my bass line, and it might sound a bit weird. So you can experiment with that, but right now we're just going to keep it basic. We're going to keep it stupid simple. Simple stupid. Deleting every note except the bass note or the bottom note. Okay, let's just solo this, see what this sounds like. I can just hit S as a shortcut. Alright, I do need this to go down another octave, so I'm going to go -12 up here. Another -12. Oh yeah, so that's a good bass sound. Let's hear what these sound like together. I believe this is becoming the Office theme song, if you're familiar with that. So now I'm going to duplicate this, Control D, until the end of the song. Like that. So you can see on this song, I had the bass come in a bit of the way through, and then I had the second harmony track end a bit. So we're just going to delete that and maybe delete that. Okay. Now we need to add in, we need two more things, guys. We're getting there. We need melody and we need beat. So there are two ways to get a beat inside of this program. We're going to go over to this right side of our screen right here on the right. If I don't see that, if my screen looks like this, I need to, up here on the top right, I need to click on this button that says Show Hide Right Zone so that I see this area on my screen. Alright, now I'm going to click Loops and Samples. And then I'm going to click this button up here, these little lines that should say Show All Results. You could certainly kind of go in these one by one, but it's going to be a little easier, in my opinion, to go and click on this button, Show All Results. So once you see this, first of all, if you see something written up here that's yellow, go ahead and click up here where it's yellow, and you can either click the X or just exit out, because it's going to limit your results to what was searched up here by a previous student. Okay, now under subcategory, this little area right here where my mouse is, I need to scroll down to where it says beats. Okay, now all of these musical beats are going to show, and there's a lot of them. So I'm going to go just start clicking. If I left click, like I don't really like that one. It's just too busy and kind of cheesy sounding. This is very important. We are going to need to click this button right here that says Align Beats to Projects. What this does is make sure that whenever I double click or drag in this beat, it's going to line up to my grid. So if this button is not selected, your whole song will sound bad. So make sure this little note button is selected right down here. One more time, make sure this button is selected before you double click or drag in a beat. So let's go find a beat real quick. And I can scroll down here and find one. Interesting. For the sake of time, I'm just going to copy and drag what I already did earlier here. I just found two different beats. Think of one for like a verse and one for a chorus, or one for the intro section, one for the middle section, you could say. Alright, so pretty cool. The last thing we're going to do here is a melody, and then I'm going to show you a few tricks and kind of make sure that we covered everything on this instruction sheet. I'm kind of going off script a little bit. So this melody idea is cool because, guys, I can play any white note. Since our chords are all in C major, I can play any white note, and the song is going to sound pretty good. So what I want to do is think about less being more. What I mean by that is, melodies typically are not as many notes as you might think. So this would be an example of kind of a weird melody. You know, just a lot of white notes versus something like this. And melodies are tricky. People spend their whole lives coming up with insanely memorable melodies. Melodies to sing to, or melodies just to be heard by an instrumental track. Think about the theme to like Star Wars or Indiana Jones, dun da da da, dun da da, or a popular song like The Weeknd, Blinding Lights, da 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 da. Okay, so we're just going to play. I'm going to record this time. Instead of drawing in notes, which I could totally create a region for this whole time and just start to draw in notes and drag them out and things like that. This is a strategy, but you just got to make sure your notes are white notes, which means that if I see a sharp, I don't want to see a sharp or flat. I just want to see the name of the note without the sharp or flat. Also, guys, earlier when I was drawing in these notes, I could see the notes that I was drawing because I was zoomed in vertically. You guys see that? So this is very important. Over here on the right, this little circle, you got to click and drag that down, and then the notes will appear. Otherwise, you're kind of going blind. You can see the name of the note right here where it says pitch. See that? So you could, right here where my mouse is, see what the note is, but go ahead and make sure that this is dragged down like that. Okay. We're doing this melody thing. I'm going to record a melody. So the shortcut is the star over on the right side of your music keyboard, or I can click this record button. All right, so I'm just going to play and hold down some random white notes. Here we go. Okay, so I was playing with the beat, so I was trying to hit a note every quarter note or every eighth note. So what I can then do is, with this selected, select it, check my grid resolution, but now I'm going to quantize it. If I hit Q, the notes will snap perfectly to the lines, like that. I can undo that and change my, if I change my grid type to like half note and hit Q, let's see here. Yes, it's still snapping to the lines. Let's go crazy. If I go here and hit Q. All right, yeah. So if I'm on like a whole measure, it's going to change my notes drastically because there's only one measure of line for it to snap to. But remember, the ones that we normally use when quantizing, quarter note, eighth note, and 16th note. So quarter note, eighth note, and 16th note are the ones that you want to use. I'm going to undo that. All right, so let's stick back to eighth note. Okay, so now I'm going to trim up the region a little bit just by cleaning up that empty area. And guys, this is the project, making a song and empowering you guys to create with different chord progressions. If you finish early, I want you to choose another chord progression, either from the example or creating your own. Like just randomly take, I'm going to do the G, the F, the A minor, and the D minor, and do the same process. Let me show you another way of doing this real quick. I could record chords by hitting record again, but I need to turn on the click, because without the click, I'm lost as far as where the beat is. So the click is the right down here on the bottom right. It says metronome, and the shortcut is C. So I want to hear this, that click. Okay, so now I'm just going to try to play those chords instead of drawing them in. Here we go. And if I play it wrong, like let's say I don't play it very well, that's okay, because I can go in, select the notes with my mouse, hit Q, and then I can drag them around so that they're taking up, each of them are taking up one measure. That's the goal. I could also do some cool stuff like this. Selecting all the notes of a chord, this is cool guys, I'm going to click 3 or right click and get to my scissor tool. And with my eighth note grid on, I'm going to just slice these notes. Whoops. Must select all of them. Okay. Slice these notes. I think in your program you can slice all of them at once. So I'm doing it the hard way. Or I could just duplicate it once I get it. Select and Control D and duplicate. Like this. So what I just did was I activated the chord rhythmically by creating a pulse. Just by slicing, it's going to play that note again, and it's going to create a pulse. Which is pretty awesome. Whoa. I don't know what's happening there, guys. Okay. So what we did was we inputted 4 chords from the chord sheet. We duplicated the chord progression, and we copied it down to another harmony track. Harmony 1, Harmony 2. I also colored my tracks, so if you click the track, go up to the color wheel, and it'll change the color for you if you want it to be something different or cool or whatever. Okay. And then We added a bass line by copying down the chord and only keeping the bottom note and transposing it down minus 12 or minus 4 or minus 24 semitones, whatever sounds good to you. And then we added a drum track using the media bay over here on the right, making sure this button was selected, Align Beats to Projects, clicking on the beats area and double clicking or dragging it in and then duplicating it. I could also record my own beat, so I have a Groove Agent track here, and let's just do that real quick. If I want to record my own beat, I need to go and find a drum kit first of all by clicking in this area right up here to find a drum kit. Click the reset button to see all your results, and let's just double click on something real quick. Remember, the bottom note on your keyboard is probably going to be a kick drum. And then 2 notes up from that is probably going to be a snare sound. And then your third black note from the bottom of your keyboard is probably going to be a hi-hat sound. So I could go in and draw or record my own beat. Let's draw a beat in first. So I'm going to draw just an area, maybe 2 measures, and I'm just going to go and double click. C1 is going to be my kick drum. So I can just, every other line, when I'm in an 8th note grid setting, create a kick drum maybe. Let's see what this sounds like. So this is going to be called 4 on the floor, 4 quarter notes in a measure. Here we go. And then a clap sound here, maybe here. And then maybe a hi-hat, duplicate that. Like this. Pretty cool, right? So we've done this before. We've made a basic beat before, so I'm just saying that you can totally do that if you want to make it a bit more challenging. You just make your own beat, and I would love that. Or I can go in, some of these drum kits have what's called a pattern. Check it out. So if I click on this pattern button right here, from instrument to pattern, some of them don't. Let's find one that does. There are actually these pre-recorded loops that sound pretty darn good, and they're kind of amazing. There we go. If I hold down left click, it's going to play a pattern. And I can just simply click and drag in this pattern, like this. Maybe duplicate this one, duplicate this one. Check it out. So that's the MIDI data. So I could go in and then change it around if I wanted to. Move it up to a different sound if I prefer a different sound. All right, I think we've covered everything. So let's go down to tricks real quick. So we've got our harmony, our bass, our melody, and drums. So tricks, very important. Rule of 4 means every 2, 4, or 8 measures, change something in the arrangement. So let's see if I've done that. Every 4 measures, so after 4 measures, I have a bass line and groove come in, okay? And then after 4 more measures, I have this blue track come in, which is my second harmony track. And I just, again, copied that just directly down and maybe transposed it. And then after 4 more measures, I have my melody come in, and the drums change. And then the melody is kind of keeping it for a while, and then I go and I change the drums again. So that's what we're doing. Doubling. So that's what we did over here with my harmony track. I just dragged it down, and it made it more interesting, having a track with a quick attack like a piano, and then a longer sustaining track like strings. Power chord. Okay, this is cool, guys. Power chord. So every chord has 3 notes: the root or the bottom note, also called the bass note, the third, and the fifth. We're going to delete the third or the middle note in each chord to make a power chord. It has a different sound and is neither major nor minor. A power chord has only 2 notes. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to delete this up here. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to copy everything over because I kind of like that song I made. I'm going to copy everything over right here. So I've got a new song basically over here. Okay. So let's do that real quick. To my chord progression, 4 chords, each chord lasting a measure. I'm going to delete the middle note. Okay, let's see what this sounds like. And this is great for rock and roll if I wanted to find a guitar sound real quick. Let's go to guitar. Okay, I could create a rhythm with it by chopping it. Check it out. So if I select both notes and then get my scissor tool by clicking 3 or right clicking, I'm going to select it, chop it once, delete the other notes. This is just my way of doing it, and then hold Control D and duplicate it. And then I could do that with this one, with these notes as well. Click 3, click, tap 1 or right click back to my select tool, and then duplicate. And then if I really want to get crazy, I can change the velocities down here so they all sound a little different. Okay, so these are a bit more advanced things that you guys can try if you want, but we just want to get the basics down first. Alright, must stay on the grid. So if you record something, make sure you quantize it and keep your grid resolutions around a quarter note, eighth note, or 16th note when quantizing. Look at your shortcut sheets, ask your neighbors for help, and happy creating, guys. You guys are now empowered to make some pretty darn good sounding songs without a ton of knowledge. So practice makes perfect. Don't get discouraged if you need help. Ask for it, and I'll talk to you all later. All right, goodbye.